Hello students, this is my part 5 of sexual reproduction. Today we will discuss the advantages and disadvantages of types of pollinations. So two types of pollination we have discussed, that is self pollination and another is cross pollination. Self pollination and cross pollination. Self pollination has disadvantages like inbreeding, depression. But cross pollination has maximum advantages like hybrid vigor. So self pollination and cross pollination, the self pollination has inbreeding depression. We can easily understand by taking the Mendel's experiment, that is tall plant when crossed with dwarf, capital T, small t, it will give one type of gamete, capital T, and this is small t. So all become capital T, small t, that is tall, hybrid tall. This is the parent and this is gamete, and after fertilization, this is the offspring or F1. So when these F1 are selfed, means self pollination, that is tall, capital T, small t, then what happens? This is capital T, small t, the gametes are formed and there is random combination. So this is capital T, this is capital T, small t, small t. So here what happens? This is tall, this pure tall, this is hybrid tall, and this is dwarf. So it is important to discuss here that particularly when the tall plant and dwarf plant is there, here the cross pollination occurred and all plants become hybrid. So what we call the hybrid vigor. So 100% plants are hybrid. But when a farmer keeps the seeds of this generation and sown it in the field, then what happens? There is nothing but here the self pollination occurs, the same type of genome, and which leads to this one. This is the 25% loss of the farmer because this is the recessive trait, and 25% loss occur to the farmer. So this is called inbreeding depression. So again and again when there is inbreeding is there, the recessive genes the recessive genes express themselves and there is loss of vigor. So from this we can easily conclude that self pollination, where the disadvantage, very important one, what we call the inbreeding depression, and in cross pollination, that is called hybrid vigor, where the tall plant and dwarf character is suppressed and the good character, the tall, is expressed. So this is called your, so advantages and disadvantages. So we can tell there is in nature there is outbreeding devices or contrivances to favor the process of cross pollination, which is advantageous always. So we can discuss what are the outbreeding devices. Outbreeding means how the plants are adapted to different situations and to bring about the cross pollination process. Outbreeding devices or contrivances. So four major important point is there. First one, pollen release. And stigma receptivity are not synchronized. Second one is the anther and stigma are placed at different position. Third point is self incompatibility. And fourth one is the production of unisexual flower. So we will discuss one by one the outbreeding devices or the contrivances for cross pollination. So what does it mean? That means the nature also discourage the self-pollination process and encourage the cross-pollination, and this is clearly marked by the distinctive adaptation by the plant structures. So first one we will discuss pollen release and stigma receptivity are not synchronized. So basing on that point, we can discuss two terms, protandry and protogyny. So what do you mean by protandry? Proto means fast. Proto means fast. Andros means male part. So in this situation, what happens in a flower, particularly in also bisexual flower, the stamen is matured. At that time, the stigma is not ready to accept the pollen. So this is called protandry conditions. And protogyny means, proto means fast, gyne means the female part, means the stigma. So in this case, although it is bisexual flower, the stigma is matured, but at that time stigma is matured, but at that time stamen is not matured to produce the pollen. So from this protandry and protogyny condition, it is clear that the pollen release and stigma receptivity must be synchronized, but here not synchronized means what? That enhance or that is favors the process of pollination. Then another condition is also seen, that is the anther and stigma are placed at different position, what we call also heterostyly condition is there. So in heterostyly conditions, what happens? Suppose this is the flower is there, the stigma is very short and the pollen that is producing stamens are very large. That means very large in the means the filament is long filament, and the anther is extrude. Extrude means they are directed towards outside, and when pollen release or the dehiscence will be there, they will be away from the stigma. This is one condition. And another conditions we can also find, that is, if this is the flower, very long style and the filament are too short. This is the filament too short. Filament of the stamen is too short that the pollen cannot goes upward. It will, when dehiscence occur, fall downward. And in this way also the cross pollination is favored, but self pollination is inhibited or discouraged. Then third condition is called self incompatibility. What do you mean by self incompatibility? Because the stigma will recognize the self pollen and non-self pollen. So here what happens, particularly the self pollen is discouraged, or we can tell this is incompatible or sterile. The stigma is sterile to self pollen. So the self pollen cannot germinate because of the self sterility or discouraged, or the pollen tube cannot develop, but the non-self pollen is encouraged. So this is also genetically controlled. These sterility genes are also there, and having the multiple allelism is found in that case. So here what happens, this non-self pollen is encouraged and self pollen is discouraged. So finally this also encourage the cross pollination process, and it is inbuilt, or we can tell the genetically automatically adapted. The last one is production of unisexual flower, or unisexuality we may tell, sexuality, where male flower is called staminate flower, and female flower is called pistillate flower, because you know that stamen is the male part and pistil is the female part. So in this case what happens, two conditions arises. One is monoecious and another is dioecious condition. Monoecious plant and dioecious plant. So in monoecious plant what happens, the single plant, one plant is there having, this is the male flower and this is the female flower, which means a single plant is there from where the male flower and female flower both are present, but in what happens, this is only male and this is only female. That means we cannot find the bisexual flower but unisexual flower in a single plant. But in dioecious what happens, in these plants separate plants are there. This is having the male flower and another plant have the female flower. So automatically what happens, that depends upon the different plants, and here the single plant, but here naturally the cross pollination is enhanced or encouraged, but the self pollination is discouraged. So this is dioecious plant and this is monoecious plants. This is also we can maize plant, and in dioecious this is the papaya. So next class we will discuss the fertilization process in angiospermic plant.